Chubnuts and like that middle deal there, you got big mesh for white fish.
All right, you can.
When we pull these nets, oh no, this net is, we got it up here for a little repair work on it. Got a couple of lines broke on it, like a repair. Then we set it back. Yeah, it's not that side, you go like 5 feet. That fish is 25 feet deep. We put that on the bottom, maybe you can see the water. Fish coming on with this quality. Flying right in. For the whole day. You get in there and they swim around in there and they can't find that little hole to dive out. Someone do it. You know what there is.
Action! 1, 2, 3. Hi.
Bye-bye. Okay.
That's a pretty nice camera. No, good editing.
That's an automatic setup. When the camera runs, it records also.
He could understand it, he could speak it also, but he couldn't, he didn't speak it well.
Camera's on.
Charge the recording machine. Yeah, that's a portrait of Chief Joseph, and currently that's the biggest piece that I've got here. I do carvings that are larger, but that's the largest one that I've got on hand. It's about roughly 3 foot by 5 foot. Carved out of redwood. And the little history behind that one is that Chief Joseph was generally accepted to be the elder statesman of Indians, and most people in reading history will come across his name more likely more than any other Indian that's in recorded history. A little bit of both, you know, a touch of the warrior, a touch of the humanitarian, great thinker, philosopher, and I think the Chief Joseph would epitomize what most modern day Indians would like to see in their counterparts and themselves. My name is Bill Palmer. I was born in 1934 on the Oneida Indian Reservation in northeastern Wisconsin. Didn't stay on the reservation too long. I think it was probably before I was 2 years old that we moved off and moved into the nearby all-white community of De Pere. We lived in De Pere, where I attended grade school and high school. I attended Haskell Institute. Currently, today, it's regarded as being one of the leading Indian junior colleges in the U.S. After Haskell, I went into the service. Put a regular hitch in the U.S. Navy, was honorably discharged, and then began my adult working career as a licensed tugboat captain for the Corps of Engineers. Stayed with the Corps of Engineers for approximately 7 years, and resigned from the Corps and went with the state of Michigan as a captain of their then newly constructed fisheries research vessel, and this was in 1967. Stayed with the state for 3 years until 1970. And in 1970 we came to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and I opened up an arts and crafts shop and began doing professionally what I had been doing as a hobby all my life, and primarily painting and carving. I found out very quickly that professionalism is a far cry from the amateur hobbyist when you start depending upon your own efforts 100% as a source of income. It becomes not so much fun anymore, and more like you could equate it more with carpentry or any one of the trades. Then loses a little bit when you do it for a living. As a consequence, I usually try to do or have to do other vocations or occupations in order to supplement the income that's produced from the arts and crafts. Currently, like I say, I've been in business here in the Sioux for 7 years, and Part of that is real estate investments, ownership in 2 different restaurants. I'm currently building another arts and crafts retail store. And in between all of the other business activities, when I get back and try to find as much time to do the arts and crafts that I can. The 8-hour day is gone. I usually end up working 12, sometimes 16 hours a day. And in order to get enough time to do the wood carving, and wood carving is slow. It's not something that you can pick up, and it's a very slow medium of expression, and this is why a lot of people don't really enjoy carving, because their thoughts are so far ahead of the ability of their hands to interpret what they're thinking. I can get an idea, and from the time I think of it till the time I can look at it in 3 dimensions, it can be hours, can be days, can be months. I've got some projects that I've been working on for 6 years that still aren't finished yet. And for most creative people, most craftsmen and artists, that's not a fast enough method of expression. Usually you get an idea and you want to see it in reality within the next hour. This is why painting is so popular.
You work primarily with wood?
Yes, yeah. I do. I dabble in all of the art mediums, primarily because as a merchant I have to know if somebody brings a painting to me, I have to be able to evaluate it for its ability to sell. And usually I don't place too much importance on how long it took or what the cost of the materials were. I look at it as an end result art piece, and it has a value to me of, say, $40, $50, a monetary value. So in order for me to judge artwork quickly, I try to be able to do that particular craft that I'm judging. So I paint, I make silver jewelry, I do pottery, sculpture, wood carving. I'm a writer. I've been published. Dabble in photography, and I've got all of these the ingredients to do all of these crafts in my own studio. I've got my own kilns for firing pottery, my own printing press for reproducing writings or drawings, block prints, and a complete jewelry setup where I can sit down, I can make silver jewelry if I want, and it gives me a better basis for buying and selling than I would if I was just, say, an average merchant and just getting into the business.
You're a businessman besides being a woodworker.
Yes. I think that in order for arts and crafts to survive, and especially native arts and crafts to survive today, it has to be placed in one of 2 distinct areas, either commercialism or in a federally subsidized program that's geared specifically for development or recapturing a lost art. Well, up here we don't have that many federal programs going on, so the only one left is commercialism. And I try as much as possible to work with other Indian artists. I buy, and I think the only way that I can really be of any assistance to Indian artists or Indian craftsmen is to purchase their works at fair market value. I've done this in totem pole carvers, with basket weavers, with beadwork makers. They would bring their wares to me, and I would buy directly from them at what I would consider fair market value, because I, as a craftsman, again, with the ability to assess a value to their work the same way that I assess a value to my work, I could say, well, if a guy brought me a 6-foot totem pole and says, I want to sell it to you for $1,000, I say, gee, that's terrific, and I wish I could pay you that much. But let's be realistic. It has its fair market value, as far as I'm concerned, would probably be somewhere, say, let's say 200. Now, if I can pay him 200, and I know roughly how long it takes him to make something, he's not going to get rich, and I'm not going to go in the poorhouse for giving them the $200. But this is what I say: you equate commercialism with the preservation of modern-day Indian arts and crafts.
Now, as Bill Palmer, woodcarver, used to take a long time to get an idea into reality. What are some of those steps you have?
The very first one, like any other accomplishment, begins by the thought process. You have to think of an idea, if it's an original artwork, or you have to first start with the subject matter. Like, say yourself, I do human portraits. I can carve your features in wood the same way that an oil painter could capture your features in oil. And the very first thing that I would do would be to get a sketch. So if I were doing your portrait, and this would be probably not very complimentary because it's quick, just as an illustration. The very first thing that I would do would be to develop a sketch, and I usually like to work the eyes first, because that a lot of character in the eyes and a lot of character in the mouth. I think if you can get those two features down, you can pretty much get a likeness of someone. And usually when you do ladies, you try to do as complimentary a carving or drawing that you can. Most of my portraits, you know, when you do portrait work, I have a guarantee, and I say, if you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. So most of the portrait work that I do has to be absolutely accurate, and I don't work off of sketches generally. I'll work off of photographs. I'll have a studio portrait done, a couple of different poses, but again, this is just an illustration. And right now I'm in trouble because I've got you looking at about 10 years older. Okay, we won't take this too much further because it's just an illustration anyway. But that's basically how we'd start. General outline, as many of the prominent features that can be displayed. Now, I would either work off of, like I say, a photograph or a sketch, and that's step one. Step two,
Alright, you can...
This is children next to them, that middle reel there, that's big mesh for white fishing.